Well, if you've been to the store to buy eggs lately, you've probably noticed that they cost an absolute fortune right now. And that has actually inspired a lot of people to get started raising chickens. We've been doing it for a while now, and we want to encourage you and we want to teach you some things. So if this is something you're interested in, you can get started raising chickens today. So we're going to talk all about eggs and all about laying chickens today. But in order to find out more, you got to stay tuned.
I wanna go somewhere far away.
Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Cattywampus Acres. My name's Jason, and we're happy to have you here as we talk all about chickens. I am in the coop today. It doesn't look very glamorous, but that's what chicken coops do. If this is your first time with us, thank you so much. We're so happy you've chosen to join us. And if you're already part of our Cattywampus crew, thank you so much for coming back to join us for yet another video. If you haven't subscribed yet, please consider hitting that subscribe button down below and the bell right next to it so you can keep up to date with everything we're doing here on the farm. So, like I mentioned, we are here in the Cattywampus Acres chicken coop. If you've ever seen chicken coops before, you've probably seen them where they're all glamorous on Pinterest and stuff and all painted white and everything. And I think a lot of homesteaders cringe when we see a white chicken coop. Like, that's gorgeous and that's beautiful and all, but they don't stay that way. I certainly can't maintain a white, perfectly managed chicken coop. That's crazy. So I thought the best way to start talking about this issue with expensive eggs and raising your own chickens would be to start with the egg. Eggs are pretty amazing things. They taste delicious. They have high protein. They're great to eat, and a lot of you probably already know that. I don't think I'm blowing anybody's mind with that little tidbit. But I want to start by talking about some little facts about eggs before we get into talking more about chickens. First of all, let's talk about egg color. This is a white egg. It looks like we have a lot of white eggs right now. But here at Cattywampus Acres, we get brown speckled, we get some blue, we get some green. There's even chickens that lay black eggs. And so the egg color is a very big, thing around when people buy eggs. And if you've never raised chickens before, you may not understand that that means nothing about how the chicken was raised or what they've eaten. That doesn't mean that it's farm fresh because they're brown or white because they were raised some other kind of way, and that's just what you get at the store. The egg color solely depends on the breed, and you can actually tell by looking at a chicken's earlobe, and I'll show you that a little bit later, which kind of eggs the chickens are most likely going to lay. Now, I won't get into all the scientific stuff, but there are some important things that I do want to cover. The egg laying process, from the time the egg cell starts in the chicken to the time you're looking at an egg, takes between 24 and 25 hours. Also during that time, the chickens need about 14 hours of light. It doesn't matter if it's real or fake light. It doesn't have to be UV or anything like that. But this is just one of those things that is required. That's why you'll notice when we have less hours of light, the chickens do not lay as much. And at the store, you've probably seen free range or cage free or farm fresh and all these different terms for eggs. I guess the simplest way to break it down is if you're buying it through the USDA system or whatever that they use to judge what kind of egg it is, it's pretty silly, and I won't get into all the politics of it and everything, but if you buy a free-range egg from a homesteader up the road or one that you raised yourself, I can tell you it's not the same as a free-range egg from the store. The requirements for them to be free-range that you buy from the store are not very high. But since we're talking about you raising chickens, if free-ranging is something that you want to do, then free-ranging in our sense that we're talking about today would mean that the chickens are allowed to just walk around your yard, your farm, your homestead, and eat whatever they want, and they can go on and eat bugs and everything else, and they can just be happy and find a lot of their own food. The eggs are going to be way healthier that way. And you're treating the chicken way better because that's sort of the life they want to live. There's also some inherent dangers with free-ranging chickens, like aerial predators, ground predators, and basically every meat-eating animal in the world will love to find a chicken to just kill them and eat them. That is just what predators do, and chickens are very, very easy prey. Majority of the eggs you get in the store, though, they are going to be a caged egg, and even the price of those have went up through the roof. There's talks that eggs in a few months could be upwards of $1 a piece, $1 per egg. That's insanity. So a caged chicken egg basically comes from typically a pearl white leghorn chicken, and they will be inside of a building. There'll be numerous cages. Sometimes there'll be between 1 and 3 birds per cage. They give them their eggs per day. They have exactly 14 hours of light in this building to give them what they need. I actually have a leghorn right down here. I'm sure she won't let me catch her, but that's you gonna let me catch her? But that is typically your caged egg. Obviously not the best life for the chicken, but certainly going to get you an egg and everything. They also add a lot of colorings to the feed and add a lot of stuff that the feed has that's probably not that great for you, and definitely lowers the nutritional value of that egg. And then you also have cage-free eggs, which basically mean that maybe it's a building, and maybe it would be like a massive version of what we're in now where they don't really get to leave, but ultimately they're not in a cage. So slightly better than a caged egg, obviously better for the animal. Nutritional, not really going to be that much different. Now, before we leave the coop and go out and hang out with our birds out here, we need to talk about the differences in nutritional facts. I'm noticing some hens at my feet here that are obviously upset that I'm blocking their egg laying time. So let me continue. Free range or pastured chickens, typically the eggs have 1/3 less cholesterol, 1/4 less saturated fat, 2/3 more vitamin A, 2 times more omega fatty acids, 3 times more vitamin E, and 7 times the beta carotene than a caged egg. Pretty impressive. Ultimately, when you cook a true pastured egg and a caged egg, you crack those in a pan, you're going to look at them, you're going to see significant differences. The egg yolk is going to be much more orange. That is very natural. That's the way that it's supposed to look, where we're used to from caged eggs for years and years and years here in the United States. We're used to this yellowish, sort of pale yellow looking yolk. A lot of that comes from the coloring that's in the feed that forces the eggs to basically be this color. So now that we've talked about eggs, we spent some time in the coop, we need to get out here with the rest of the birds. But before I leave, coop. What is a coop for? We hear the term chicken coop quite a bit, but the coop is basically where the chickens come to sleep at night on roosts like this behind me here. These roosts probably hold, I think we've had 80 or so chickens on here before, and this is the coop is like 8 by 8, and it holds a lot of chickens because they're ultimately just sleeping in here and just coming in here occasionally to lay eggs here in the nesting boxes. We use a pretty traditional style nesting box here. This was from an old chicken house, and it works perfect. This is considered a 8-hole nesting box. It's got the roost, it's got poop on it. That's just life with chickens. It is what it is. We can get in here and clean this out, and you do have to do that pretty often. But a nesting box, the most important part of a nesting box is that it's basically just big enough to hold one chicken. It's pretty dark in there. That's how they like to lay their eggs, although they will lay eggs occasionally wherever they want. But a nesting box just like this is basically what you want. And I've seen people do them with 5-gallon buckets. I've seen them do it with plywood, cardboard. I mean, there's a million ways, and we're not going to sit here and tell you the perfect way to do it because there is no perfect way. But ultimately, some dark area that's 12-ish by 12-ish. That will give them some space to get in there once a day and lay their eggs. Well, all right, well, now we're out here in the chicken run, and our chicken run is what we use to protect our birds from mainly out here aerial predators, but ultimately all kinds of predators. This is a way that the chickens can roam around, eat some bugs, peck at the ground, do what they do what chickens like to do, but be safe, because we used to lose a lot of chickens to specifically hawks and things like that. And so this was one way we found with some bird netting up above, fencing all the way around, give them some safe space so we're not losing. Sometimes we were losing about 5 birds a day. It's insane. So when you're getting started with chickens, you're gonna need ultimately some type of coop that will fit your birds. You're gonna need some nesting boxes for your hens and some area for them to hang out and roam around and get a little bit of sun. Now, if you've looked for chicken coops before, seen them online, seen them on Pinterest or Instagram or anything, if you just have 2 to 4 birds, 5 birds, something like that, maybe half a dozen, those little commercially sold coops, those will work. They are very expensive, but they do work. Ultimately, chickens, specifically in the coop, do not need a lot of space. Just enough for them to sit on a roost, fluff out a little bit, and make themselves home so they can take a little nap overnight. Now, if you choose to keep your chickens in a run opposed to free ranging them, that's fine. And there's going to be people who argue all day what the actual size is. I don't think that it matters. Chickens will make do. But ultimately, they need some space to move around, do what they want to do. And so a lot of times, if you just have 2 or 3 birds, you're talking, I don't know, maybe 5 by 5, 6 by 6, something like that. They don't need a whole lot of space. One consideration too is if you are going to free range your birds, and if you treat your grass, I'm going to recommend to not let them peck at that. That's not a good idea. I know a lot of these grass treatment companies say that they're not going to hurt your pets and stuff. Chickens will actually consume that grass when they want it, and I don't know, putting a bunch of chemicals on it and then goes into the chickens, and even if they survive, they lay an egg and then that's going into you. Wouldn't recommend. So just keep that in mind if you're going to free range your birds. So like I mentioned earlier, there's a whole bunch of chicken breeds, and that we could go on and on naming all these chicken breeds, and that's really not overly important into what we're talking about today. But one thing you need to know, and this may be sort of dumbed down, but needs to be said, there's 2 main types of chickens. There's roosters, the ones you hear crowing behind me here, and then there's hens. The hens are going to be the ones that lay the eggs. The roosters are your males, and they do not lay eggs. Now, one myth around chickens and laying eggs is that you need a rooster for hens to lay eggs. That's just not true. Hens are going to lay eggs on their own schedule, no matter what, whether there's roosters or not. But if you do keep roosters, one rooster can actually fertilize the eggs of 10, 12, 15 hens, and that's the way they like to do it. So if you are keeping roosters, that's a pretty good ratio. We currently have more roosters than that, I think. They're all over the place. But something to keep in mind is that if you do have roosters around your hens, you are going to have to collect your eggs quite regularly. Because what can start to happen is the chickens will lay an egg, and if it's fertilized, which chances are if you have a rooster and hens, it's going to be fertilized. If the hen broods and sits on that egg, and you let it go for a few days, unfortunately you're going to have some slightly developed chickens in those eggs. And believe it or not, the process of a chicken growing inside an egg only takes about 21 days. So if you had a fertilized egg and it was in there for a few days and the hen was sitting on it that whole time, there's a good chance there's probably some development going on there, and that's a good way to ruin what you think about eating eggs at that point. So as you can see, I have a friend that's joined me here. This is one of our light Brahma hens, and I wanted to just sort of cover a few things, so maybe so you guys know and learn a little bit more about chickens. Well, earlier I spoke about the egg color and talked about their earlobes. Well, what I'm talking about is this right here. Can we see this? Let's see if we can get up close and see that. That right there, that red area is her earlobe, and it's a little rubbery thing. It looks like it's sort of part of her comb, but this Brahma has red earlobes, and so I know she's going to lay brown eggs. That is basically the only difference in your brown and white eggs. And now leghorns, there's some of these white ones that you see behind me, they have white earlobes, and they are going to lay white eggs. And then somewhere around here we have some Americanas and Easter eggers and olive eggers, and they really don't have earlobes. They actually have a muff instead. It sort of looks like a feather beard, and they will lay blue or green type eggs. Now this is the comb up here, and this is that red area that's rubbery on top of their head, and hers is nice and red, which means she's nice and healthy because it's got good blood flow going to it. You will see occasionally some little black spots on some of the combs and wattles of the chickens, and that can be frostbite. We just got through this cold weather, and sometimes the blood doesn't flow to that area as much and they get a little bit of frostbite. It's just going to happen. I'm not going to start putting hats or anything on our chickens. Once again, good sign of a healthy hen is going to be red coloring in their wattle and in their comb. So what's up, chicken butt? Well, back here is where the chicken's vent is, and a lot of stuff happens from here. This is how they go to the bathroom, but this is also where the egg comes out of. And healthy chicken's vent should be nice and moist and have a dark pink color to it, and that's how you know that they're laying eggs and that they're very, very healthy. Another thing to point out with chickens is that they don't have traditional stomach juices and stomach acid like we do as humans. And they're not like our goats where they're a ruminant animal and they chew cud and stuff. Instead, when they eat food, they will actually move the food to this area right here, and I can feel it. You obviously cannot feel it, but this side here, there's a little bulbous area right here, and this is called their crop, or some people call it a craw. And that is where she stores her food, and it's really full right now because she's been eating a lot today. And what chickens will do, instead of sending it to a stomach and digesting it with acid, they will actually eat what they want for the day, and they will also peck at stuff like gravel and hard substances, which we call grit, and that will get inside there, and that will crunch up and work at basically breaking all that down so they can use that as their nutrition. Well, we've talked about food now, and so I might as well show you. This here, if you can see, is layer pellets. And layer pellets are one of the things that we supplement our chickens' diet with. We use a 16% layer pellet that we know is from a good, respectable company, and that we know that we can feed them and add some extra nutrition into what the chickens are already eating from the ground and the food scraps that we give them. And we could really get into a lot of debates about chicken food, and that's not what I'm here to do. I'm just here to just sort of explain it to you and let you decide on your own what you want to do. If you are solely feeding your chickens chicken feed, like a pellet or a crumble or something like that, 16% is going to be required. Like anything less than that for a layer chicken isn't really going to be doing it and isn't going to provide them the nutrition that they need. Now there are ways, like pasturing chickens, where you don't need to give them feed at all. And my buddy Travis over at Lazy Dog Farm, he uses his chicken tractor, and he will move that chicken tractor across his cover crops growing in his garden, and the chickens will eat those cover crops, get the nutrition that they need. They will also poop on the ground, fertilizing that area. And he moves those chickens daily or every other day so they get to spread out. They don't destroy what they're on, and they can spread sort of the fertilization out a little bit. And when it comes to layer pellets and chicken feed, there is organics, there's GMOs, there's non-GMOs, there's non-organics, there's pellets, there's crumbles. Listen, y'all, there's so many different things, and that's not what this video is about. You can look into that. You can decide on your own what you want to feed them. But ultimately, your chickens need to be getting around 16 to 20% protein in order to keep laying eggs every day and maintain a healthy lifestyle for themselves. And if you look at a chicken and they're plump and they have good-looking feathers and they are just sort of happy, their combs are red, their wattles are red, and they're walking around acting normal, chances are you're doing something right. That's probably a healthy chicken. And watering, chickens need water all the time. No matter how you raise your chickens, no matter where you raise your chickens, be sure to provide them water 24/7. It doesn't matter what the conditions are, chickens need water all the time. That's part of their whole digestion process, and as we all know, we all need water to stay alive, so make sure you provide fresh water to them at all times. And I would be a fool to not mention kitchen scraps. We have not thrown away kitchen scraps in several years, because we've been raising chickens the whole time, and we bring all of our kitchen scraps right out here to the chickens, and they are literally walking garbage disposals. Chickens will eat darn near anything from the kitchen. And that brings us to a controversial point: vegetarian eggs and vegetarian feed. If you are a vegetarian, more power to you. If you're a vegan, whatever, you're probably not watching this video. But ultimately, I want to tell you this, and this is just the way it is. Chickens are not vegetarian animals. Chickens are omnivores, and if you force a chicken to eat solely vegetarian food, they are not getting the nutrition that they need. I'm sorry to break it to you. I'm sure I'll get some nasty comments about it, but chickens eat bugs, they eat worms, they eat all kinds of things. They eat blades of grass, they eat leaves, they eat anything they can find on the ground. And so I can tell you right now, chickens are omnivores, and so you shouldn't, in our opinion, restrict your chicken to a vegetarian food just because you're a vegetarian. If that's a big conflict for you, I would recommend not raising chickens for eggs, because they are that's not healthy for them. They need to eat basically whatever they want. So you may be wondering, where do I get a chicken from? Well, there are tons of ways to get your first chicken. I would recommend finding a responsible hatchery. We've used McMurray Hatchery for a very long time, and they are great people. They put out very healthy, very good birds. They have tons of varieties, and they will ship them right in the mail to you. I'm going to put a link probably up in this area where we're going to show you how we get chickens in the mail. There's also things like Craigslist and farms around that will actually sell chicks. Some will sell actually hatching eggs, and some will sell fully developed birds. Fully developed birds are going to cost you quite a bit. Chicks are going to be $3 to $5 typically for your normal laying hens, but your full-size birds that are already laying, those are going to be definitely in the $30 to $50 range. Well, there you have it. This is the beginning of our chicken series. I definitely couldn't cover everything in one video. Today we've talked about eggs. We've talked about some nutritional things about eggs, some myths around eggs, and egg colors, things like that. We've talked about some differences between hens and roosters. We've talked a little bit about some chicken anatomy, and we've also talked about some chicken housing. But we are going to keep talking about chickens for the next couple weeks in our long videos and our short videos. We're going to be building a brand new chicken tractor, so hopefully you can join us for that. Remember what we always say here: when you homestead, you're home fed. Get started with chickens today. Stay with us. We're going to teach you all about them. We'll see you guys next time.
I wanna go somewhere far away. I wanna go where they don't know my name. Get out of town.